Welcome back to the Colmeyer Ski Podcast. Today I'm joined by professional cross-country skier Alayna Sonnesyn. Alayna has competed at the highest level of the sport, from a standout high school and collegiate career to racing on the World Cup stage. Beyond skiing, she also has been open about the challenges and setbacks that come with chasing big goals, which has made her a great voice in this sport. We talk about her journey through skiing, life after college racing, her podcast, and a whole lot more. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Here's my conversation with Alayna Sonnesyn for the third episode of the Colmeyer Ski Podcast. All right, welcome back to the podcast and to the YouTube channel. This is the third episode I'm doing with guest Alayna Sonnesyn. How's it going?
Hi, I'm great. I'm so excited to chat with you, and it's fun to connect with a fellow Midwestern skier, and yeah, happy to be here.
Where are you coming from? What's been going on recently in your training and in your life?
Yeah, I recently just moved back to Vermont. So I grew up in Minnesota, went to school in Vermont, joined a ski team in Vermont, and then 2 years ago moved back to Minnesota to join Team Berkey, which is now snow racing. And this past year, my partner, he got a new job working for Dartmouth College. So that kind of brought us back to the New England area, and we bought a place out here, and I moved out here this spring, and so I'm tuning in from Vermont.
Awesome. How's training been?
It's been good. Yeah, it's been a little bit different for me this year. I've just kind of been taking a bit of a slower approach to it the last couple weeks to months and kind of letting myself come off of kind of a tricky season and figure out what I want next. But it's been nice the motivation is coming. It's not quite, it wasn't there 100% on May 1st, but I definitely allowed myself to just feel all the feels and process certain things. And so it has been a little bit of a slower start for me, but it's definitely coming around now, and yeah, getting excited for new things.
That's wonderful to hear. So I have a list of questions just to kind of guide the conversation. So we'll just kind of get started, dive into your history and your background. You're from Minnesota. Where specifically, and how did you get into cross country skiing?
I am from Plymouth, Minnesota. I went to Wayzata High School, and my parents taught me how to ski, and my siblings all at a very young age. So we joined the Minnesota Youth Ski League, and were there every single weekend throughout the winters. And my older sister, she joined the Wayzata Middle School team when she was in seventh grade, and so naturally. 2 years later, when I was in seventh grade, I also had to follow in her footsteps and join the middle school ski team. And that kind of just it took off from there and continued to race and love ski racing ever since.
So you got into skiing through your family, and then you raced competitively in high school. I mean, like when I was in high school after my freshman year season skiing, I was like, this is what I want to do. Was that like clear for you, or were you still doing other sports at the time?
Yeah, I was definitely still doing other sports at the time, especially my freshman year of high school. I was running cross country, I was running track and field, and I was also still playing soccer on a very competitive travel soccer team in the spring. And so, and in addition to ski racing in the winter. So my freshman year was very hectic, I would say, and also a big kind of eye opener for me when, in the ski season, because I went into the ski season, having had some great results as a middle schooler, but not really many expectations. And then I went to my first junior national qualifying race, not really thinking that it was going to lead to much. And then suddenly I had qualified for junior nationals, and that was something I barely even knew what it was, and felt really foreign to me. And it felt like such a big deal. And it was really cool to see so much excitement and enthusiasm around skiing when I went to my first junior nationals. And I also went into the Minnesota State meet having had competed as an eighth grader there, but I think I was like 60th as an eighth grader. So really not too many expectations going into the state meet as a freshman. And I ended up second. And so that was kind of an insane day for me and a huge, again, eye opener of, you know, hey, maybe I've got I've got some talent here, and this is really fun. And I had worked kind of hard the last year to improve in skiing. And so that was my freshman year, definitely a big adjustment. And so I continued to run track and field and play soccer that spring, but really started to figure out, okay, I think I need to um, maybe narrow things down a little bit. And so I decided to retire from my soccer career at that point, but I still felt like I could balance running and skiing quite well. And so I continued to run and ski throughout high school and balanced both. It was a lot for sure, but I was excited to do all of it. And, the Wayzata running and ski team at the time were both very strong. And so both seasons would carry into the next season, like the cross country running season would still be going on by the time the ski season came around. And so it definitely made it tricky for me to balance both in those in between seasons. Um, but I don't know how in depth you want me to go of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I continued to balance both throughout high school and, was happy to take the advantages that I gained from one season and carry them into the next season. So, I was building fitness in the cross country season, and that led me up very well for the ski season. It meant that I needed to still roller ski a little bit in the fall. And so it was something that I negotiated with my running coaches, and they were not very happy about the idea of me roller skiing in the fall at first, but I convinced them that it was the best thing for me, that, even running 6 days a week was more than I probably needed. And if I just had one day where I could go roller ski, I think it was great cross training and prevented injury and also made me a really happy athlete then and made me feel more confident going into the ski season. And so I did have to push pretty hard to get them to let me do that. And I know that it is not always the easiest thing to convince running coaches to let you ski in the running season, but I am a firm believer that the balance that you can have as an athlete will help you carry over and produce longevity in any sport that you have. So it was a battle I believed was worth fighting, and I would encourage others to fight for also. But yeah, I typically, would roller ski once a week in the fall and try to do some sort of strength as well, like some push-ups and pull-ups if I could throughout the fall, just to make sure I had some upper body strength going into the ski season, and then also make sure that I had some recovery built in there between the two seasons as well. So yeah, continue to kind of just I guess it was a little bit of a grind throughout the year, but it was always so fun. And I have very fond memories of being part of both sports. And, I'll wrap track and field into cross country as, running. And so it was kind of these two different sports that I was doing. But I was really excited about continuing to do both throughout my entire high school career. And um, yeah, I don't know if I have more to say than that.
So, kind of building off of your balance between high school skiing and cross country running, what would you recommend to high schoolers who run in the fall and also want to ski in the winter and either have coaches that are more opposed to the idea of skiing for a cross country coach, or like even what's your take on specialize one or the other?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the specialization part. And so I'm not going to have the exact statistics behind here, but I have read a book. It's called Up to Speed, bringing female sports up to speed with male sports. And it talks about one, the difference between young women and young men in sports and the differences that there are and how can we bring the women's sports up to speed with the men's sports, obviously. But it also talks about as a young athlete trying to specialize or not specialize. And something that they say in the book is in a study, again, don't quote me on this, but I just recall this from the study that um, the athletes who specialize at the age of 14 or younger tend to become outstanding junior athletes and probably are at the top of their field by the time they're 17. And then frequently retire by the time they're 18 or 19. And they are burnt out and quit the sport and don't really have any longevity in it. Versus the athletes who continue to balance and explore many, many sports throughout their developing years, basically until they're through with high school, then they have much more longevity in the sport and are those who are still competing at a very high level at the age of 23, 25, 30 years old. They are top of their sport at that point. And I think a lot of that comes back to many sports can feed off of each other and the skills that you might take from something like soccer, building agility and strength and power and explosiveness in soccer, I think carried over into my skiing very well. And those are all really strong attributes to have as a skier. And the fitness that I gained from running, I think carried over into skiing as well. And so I think that I'm not going to tell anyone what to do ever, but I felt like having a balance in both rather than specializing was definitely the best path for me. But everyone's going to be different. I know another study showed that, Tiger Woods was or he was golfing by the time he was 2, and by the time he had turned the age of 5, he had golfed more rounds than many people will do in their entire lifetime versus Roger Federer was playing tennis. He was also playing squash and racquetball and all of these other sports still when he was the age of 18. And both became, one of the greatest of all times in their respective sports. So I think that there's no one path or one right answer. It has to be up to that individual and what they are passionate about and what their goal is. Is their goal to be a standout athlete at the age of 17 and then maybe be done with it? Or is their goal to be a standout athlete throughout their entire life and really grow into their full potential as an athlete, maybe at the age of 28 years old? So I think it's a hot topic with specialization as a young athlete, but again, I'll just go back to it. It really depends on the individual, and if you are wanting to continue to balance many sports, then I think it's just an honest conversation with your different coaches and helping them feel confident and believe that that is the best program for you. And, if you need to show them proof of, uh, hey, I'll get injured if I run every single day, or hey, I'm not going to be happy if I don't get to ski in the fall, or vice versa. Say you want to be able to run in the winter because you're a skier and you also want to make sure that it isn't too hard of an adjustment in the spring to get back in shape for track. And those are just examples that I have, the running to skiing because that's my experience. But I think it could go in any direction of, wanting to play lacrosse in the spring or something. And maybe you want to make sure that you can go and practice a few times a week throughout the winter, even though you're skiing too. And so I think it's, again, just going back to having that honest conversation with your coach and helping them feel confident and believing in that it's the best case for you and the best plan for you to be their best athlete.
And I know that when I was in high school, I went back and forth quite a bit on, especially like my senior year when I was getting more serious about skiing and wanting to get on a college team. And I went back and forth a lot. And my club coach highly encouraged running cross country or doing a fall sport after like we do our summer training program, and then we come back in the fall before we are on snow.
Mhm.
And she very highly encouraged running cross country because there's like a competitive aspect to it, along with getting fitter from running fitness and endurance, but also like when you take a break from racing in March and then the next time you're going to race again is in late December or even January. That's a long time to go without being in a competitive racing mindset. So cross country is a very good way to get into a unique environment where it's not a ski race. It's always a mass start. It's always going to be close and it's going to be hard. So I think,
Mhm.
that's another thing to think about when balancing the two sports too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after some successful results in high school, and where was your first JNs?
They were actually in Minneapolis, which was really cool. It was at
Awesome.
Worth Park, but it was before Worth Park is what it is today. Like there was no trailhead there. It was completely different. The stadium was where it was at the top of the sledding hill, if listeners know Worth Park, but it was completely different experience. But it was cool that it was, just down the road from where I grew up.
And you qualified for JNs all 4 years of high school?
Hmm.
Where were the other three venues?
Yeah, from there, then we went to Soldier Hollow in Utah my sophomore year, and then up to Fairbanks, Alaska my junior year, and then Stowe, Vermont my senior year, which was really cool because I then was already in a place where I knew I was going to go to the University of Vermont the next year. So getting to go out to Stowe that senior March and kind of check things out in Vermont and have a little preview there, that was really fun.
So, piggybacking off that, what was your recruitment process like?
Um, I'll be honest, I feel like it was a little bit easy for me, and I will don't take that for granted. It was really nice. I had been having a pretty challenging junior year of ski racing, and I wouldn't say there were still some great results there, but I definitely felt like there was a lot of pressure to have even better results and to be winning all the races to try to get on a college team. And I really thought that it was all going to come down to the Minnesota State high school meet. And, at that point, I had been second twice, both my freshman and sophomore year. And so I felt all of these expectations that really I was just putting on myself, that naturally the next place would be for me to win the state meet. And I went into the state meet kind of a nervous wreck, and it did not go well. And I barely made the top 10. I don't even know what place I was, but I felt like it was a disaster, and I was quite frankly very upset. And went to my junior nationals then in Fairbanks, Alaska that year. And I remember warming up for one of the races and thinking, you know, maybe I'm not cut out to ski in college, and maybe I'll run, or maybe I'll go to school and join a club team, and maybe D1 skiing isn't for me, and that's okay. I think that's a great option also. But if that's the case, then I want to make sure I have really a lot of fun while I'm here at Junior Nationals. And, I've never been to Alaska before, so it's a crazy new experience. And I was thinking all of this while I was warming up for what was a 5K skate race. And I went out then with this mindset of I want to just have fun here, right? And enjoy where I'm at. And I ended up winning that junior nationals race. Of all of the U18s and U20s, I was second. And so it was this outstanding result where I had bounced back from a devastating state meet result. And it opened my eyes to how much your psyche and mindset can play a role in your racing, and just how much that can impact what you're able to do in a race. And so that was a huge eye opener for me. And it also opened the doors for me in many ways to ski in college that I probably didn't have before that race. And so the UVM coach reached out to me with interest, and a couple of other coaches did as well. And, I was kind of thinking, do I want to go all the way out east, or do I want to stick around the Midwest and go somewhere like Northern Michigan University, where a lot of my other friends were going to? And it definitely felt like a safe option to go to NMU. It was not that far from home. I knew my parents would be at every single ski race in the winter, and all my friends were going there or already were there. And so it definitely felt like a safe option. But I also recognized that if there's ever a chance to do something new and give you a reason to get out of your comfort zone, it's going to college in a place that you've never really been to. And so I took the leap and decided to go to the University of Vermont, and I was so, so happy there, and had a great time.
Making the jump from college skiing to racing professionally isn't a straightforward path. It's very windy. And what was your transition like, and what were some of the biggest adjustments you had to make once you were not racing in a college program and in the college circuit?
I think the biggest thing for me was adjusting to the fact that there isn't really a team score anymore. And I had been so used to racing for my team or racing for something bigger than just myself, and always believing, well, even if I'm not having the best race of my life or fighting for a podium, I know that every single place counts for that team score. And so I'm going to keep going, keep pushing and trying to pick off anyone I can. And in professional racing, that doesn't exist anymore. It's you against yourself, really. And um, many times you're doing a lot of individual races, so it's not even a mass start. And so much of it, I think, comes down to, again, like the sport psych behind it and how you prepare for a race mentally. It's one thing to be really fit and in shape, but it's another to be confident and believe in yourself and have a race plan and believe that you can go execute that race plan as best as you can. And so I think that was really the biggest adjustment for me and figuring out how to do that. And it did not come easy. It took me a long time. I'm still working on it every single day. And that first year out of college, then I would say was a really solid season, and I had some good performances. But it was really a learning experience for me. And I would say I learned so much in that first season that I could then carry over into my second season as a professional. And I would always, and I do encourage anyone who's thinking about skiing after college to commit themselves to 2 seasons, because one year just isn't enough to really give yourself the full opportunity of reaching your full potential. And you can make a lot of improvements in that first year, but then you can make even more in that second year. And it's really cool to see what happens then.
And after your time at UVM, you went to SMS for your as a
Mhm.
pro team. How was your experience there?
Yeah, it was really great. I mean, it was so fun. I got to be teammates with Jesse Diggins and Sophie Caldwell, now Sophie Hamilton, and Simi Hamilton. And so all of these just amazing skiers who I had looked up to for so long, I got to be their teammates and become friends with them and get to train with them every single day. So it was a really, really amazing experience. It also was very different. I had been living in Minneapolis and then in Burlington, Vermont. Both are pretty bustling cities. And then I moved to Stratton, Vermont, which is pretty similar to Cable, Wisconsin, just kind of out there a little bit. The closest grocery store to us was 30 minutes away, and uh, there wasn't really anything else going on besides our training. And we had a lot of fun. Our teammates were our best friends and were our entire community. And so we spent a lot of time together and got creative with how do we want to spend our time outside of training too. And so it was a really big adjustment to move somewhere like that, and also to increase my training load all of a sudden. I also was in a position where I needed more financial support. And so I was working a lot of different jobs on top of that. I was working at a ski shop once a week. On my off day, I would go there and just work. It was pretty dead in the middle of the summer in Stratton, Vermont, but still someone had to be there. And then I was working at this little bistro cafe probably 3 or 4 times a week, and those were usually in the evenings. So that meant if I wanted to double in a session, I had to start my double by like 2 p.m., which isn't always the best for training, but it's what I had to kind of make happen. And then I was also babysitting in my free time as much as I could as well. So it was not the most ideal setup to be kind of running around and on my feet for so long. But then that first year as a pro, I actually found a job through a friend of a friend working as basically a virtual assistant for someone. And that was really great because I could start doing that from the road and I could do it wherever I was in the world. And it started off as like 8 to 10 hours a week, which was pretty manageable. And then he went on to start his own company and took me with him. And I started filling more of a role for social media for him and the company. And the hours started to increase. And I started to find myself in more of this marketing position. And that eventually segued into me getting a different job at a small marketing agency. And I have been there for 5 years now and working part-time really my entire ski career to make sure I can afford what I'm doing and also gives me a little bit some sense of identity outside of ski racing as well. So I again, it all goes back to finding some balance and a balance that works for you. And in high school, I wanted to ski and run to have that balance, and now in this phase of life, I work and ski to have balance.
What job would you recommend for high school or collegiate athletes that are also trying to train, especially in the summer, like big hours, big volume? What job would you recommend that they try to find?
That's a really good question. And it's kind of tricky because I found a job working for one of my friends' dads and his company, and we were doing kind of some administrative stuff in his office, and it was an air-conditioned office, and I could sit there in the AC and just kind of work away. It was really mind-numbing and monotonous and not always enjoyable, but I was doing it with one of my best friends, so we had a fun time doing it. But it was great. I would say it was great for recovery because I was sitting around and in air condition in the middle of the summer. So that actually worked out really well for me. But it isn't always like the most interesting thing to do. I know my brother, he worked at Three Rivers Park District. He worked out at Lake Rebecca and Baker Park, and I think he had a fun time. He was working at the boat launch, and he could sit for most of the day, but would have to get up and do a couple things here and there, and so got him moving around. But it was also outside, which depending on the type of day could be a stressor then to be outside all day. Um, so yeah, I think that if you can find something where you don't have to be on your feet all day, that would probably be great to help with some semblance of recovery. But also making sure that it's something that you're having fun with too. And so I think you get pretty creative with it.
Moving along, you've had the opportunity to race on the World Cup circuit and represent the U.S. internationally, which is super cool. Was there any particular race, venue, or moment that made you stop and think like, "Wow, this is really happening"?
Definitely the Minneapolis World Cup will forever be the most memorable experience of my ski career. And it came in a time where I was having a pretty tough season and I wasn't in a great headspace about ski racing at all. And I was grateful to be racing at the Minneapolis World Cup and the community that came out and showed their support and the amount of passion that you could just feel on that course throughout the entire weekend. And people didn't care if you were winning or last place. They didn't care if you were from the US or from any other country. They were just going to cheer with their entire heart for you. And it really made me just love ski racing all over again and love the Midwest ski community who showed up and just everything that we're doing. And it was so special because Worth Park was, as I said, my first junior nationals, and it's where I had conference and sections throughout high school and all of these junior national qualifying races throughout high school too. So to be able to bring the World Cup back to Minneapolis and to be able to compete there on that home soil and kind of have those two worlds collide the way it did was, I mean, I was crying during the warm up on both days, and I just felt so loved and did not have great results at all, but it was just such an incredible experience that I will never forget.
How did it compare to Lake Placid World Cup finals this past season?
Uh, Lake Placid was amazing as well. The weather was very challenging in Lake Placid. And so I think that that maybe toned things down a little bit, but it was still really incredible in Lake Placid. I think that the personal connection that I had with Minneapolis just made it so much more overwhelmingly emotional for me. And the fact that it had been the first World Cup in the US in over 20 years at that point made it just have so much more greater meaning. But Lake Placid was really outstanding as well. And the people who did show up, despite the horrific weather, it was really cool to have them all there.
Last week, I was speaking with Zach Jane, and we were talking about his World Cup debut and the two back-to-back World Cup weekends that he raced, and the success that he had. What was your World Cup debut like?
My first World Cup was actually when World Cup finals were in Quebec City in 2019. That was the first year I had, been pro. I was with Stratton, and it was similarly very, very cool. Even though it was in Canada, it still felt very similar to being home, and my parents could come and it was my first year out of college, and there were so many skiers from the EISA circuit who came up, and old teammates, and my brother who was at UNH at the time came, and so it felt like I was also racing at home there, and so that was such a great way to kind of open my eyes to the World Cup. And um, yeah, it was a good eye opener. And then I had the whole next season to, or next training year to kind of prepare and try to get ready for my actual European World Cup debut, I'll say.
That is awesome. I've raced in Canada and Quebec for Canadian Nationals my junior year, and it's it's like home away from home. Like you feel like
Hmm.
you're somewhere else and you're racing on a bigger stage, but it's also somewhat comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's very cool.
Um, at the end of the 2023-2024 season, you announced you were heading back to Minnesota to join the pro team based there, which at the time was Team Berkey. What was your decision to go back, and how's your time with now snow racing been?
Yeah, I so that was the same season as the Minneapolis World Cup. And as I alluded to before, I wasn't really in the best headspace at the time and just had some personal things going on and needed to kind of sort through those and wasn't really feeling like I had a whole lot of purpose outside of sport and my own results. And I will say that my time in Stratton was unbelievable, and I value my experience there and all of the people there who helped me develop into the skier that I am today, and had some really great learning experiences and built some really amazing relationships with the people there. But I just felt like I had maybe outgrown the space, and that people change and people grow, and I felt like I needed some change in my life. And after the Minneapolis World Cup, feeling that so much love and support and just feeling so connected with the Midwest ski community, I felt like I wanted to kind of reconnect with that. And so yeah, it kind of made sense for me to try something different and head back to the Midwest. When I graduated from college, Team Berkey did not exist at the time, so there was not an opportunity, or it wasn't a clear path for me to go back to the Midwest. And at that point then in 2024, there was a clear path, and so I took that, and it's been really great to be back with the Midwest ski community and kind of everything I had hoped for.
What has your training been like back in the Midwest? I know I went to a Team Berkey camp in August 2024, and I got to train with you and Zach and some other Team Berkey athletes. How was that? What was that experience like actually being back in the Midwest and training with that group?
It's so fun. Yeah. And I love, my family has a cabin up around Hayward. And so I love the training around the Hayward and Cable area. And definitely the biggest adjustment for me going back to the Midwest was dealing with the traffic in Minneapolis, both getting to practice and also on the roads. I just was used to being in the rural Vermont roads that there was not really much traffic. And so for me to go back to the number of cars going very fast on a tiny little shoulder was foreign to me. And we were always in such a big training group too. So that was the biggest adjustment. But the training back there, I think people give the Midwest a lot of heat because there aren't as many hills in the Midwest, and they're not wrong. There are no mountains in the Midwest, but I was able to get pretty creative, and Zach had been training around Minneapolis already for so long, and Team Berkey had kind of found these sweet spots of where you could find a good interval loop. And so I asked them always for questions like, where would you recommend going? And by that point, the American Berkey Foundation had put in the roller ski track and cable. And so I've done many workouts on that now, and I think it's a great resource and really great for so many reasons to develop as an athlete, to go out there. And yeah, just have to get creative with it.
As of last week, Tim Berkey announced that they're transitioning into a new rebranding of snow racing. What's the inside scoop of like the decision and the rebranding, and what does that mean for the club?
Yeah, it means that we can find some new opportunities with some marketing offers. Being Team Berkey, although we love the Berkey and will always cherish everything related to the Berkey, it did kind of limit us in terms of how can we market ourselves with other potential sponsors or other organizations. And it always kind of tied us so directly back to the Berkey. And so we want to continue to represent the Berkey and always support the Berkey as best we can. And also find some other opportunities that will help us grow our team in new ways and hopefully tap into, maybe a larger audience, the greater outdoor community throughout the Midwest rather than the ski community. How can we expand there? And so I think it will really help us basically grow our ski community, but really our community throughout the Midwest that we interact with and can interact with every single day.
That is that's awesome. I know I
Yeah,
have some Team Berkey shirts that I now I'm like, oh, these are vintage now. These are sick.
they're so vintage.
That like March, they're vintage from a couple months ago, but regardless,
Yeah,
it's still super cool.
hold on to them. They're gonna be worth gold in a few years.
I know I gotta put them on eBay, be like Team Berkey shirt, $800.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
you also host your own podcast, Extra Blue, and have had conversations with a variety of athletes and people in the ski world. How has being on the other side of the microphone changed your perspective, and what has podcasting taught you uh, that's carried over into your athletic career?
It's really fun to be on the other side of the microphone and ask the questions I want to ask and also tell the story that I see from my perspective and also help others share their story that they see from their perspective. So I think that there are a lot of topics in the ski world and also the sports world that are maybe a little bit taboo or hush hush, or no one really feels comfortable speaking so openly about it. And my goal is to, one, create the podcast and share conversations that just embrace our passion for the sport. And two, to really open the door into some of these deeper conversations about sports psych, about pressure, about confidence, and about the challenges that athletes face, or the obstacles that they might overcome, or things that maybe a typical journalist would be nervous to ask of athletes or of coaches, or maybe those athletes or coaches don't feel comfortable being so vulnerable in a conversation about them to a journalist. I feel like I am in a unique position where I have these personal relationships with a lot of people in the industry, and I value those relationships a lot. And I feel like I can have really honest conversations with many people, and and I ask them, are you willing to share this conversation with the world? And they'll say, with you, yes. And so I feel really, yeah, just grateful for that and for all of my guests being willing to open up in the way that they do.
I have been a long time listener, and I listen like on my long runs, OD runs, sometimes on skis and bike rides and stuff. And it's a great listen. And I just want to comment and say that your episode about missing out on the Olympics this past season was incredibly powerful. Because like you were saying, like many journalists and like media outlets kind of highlight the highlights and successes. And it takes a lot of courage to openly talk about your experience and your story. So I don't want to dive too deep into it. I know you had your own episode about it. So for the listeners, if you are interested to hear about that, check out Alayna's podcast and check out her episode. But I just wanted to say that that was really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those words and thanks for listening to the podcast. It means a lot. And it was really scary to publish that episode. And I had no idea what I was doing when I hit publish, but it has been really amazing to just hear the response and the feedback from various people about me sharing my story and others being able to relate to it in different ways and whatever that looks like for them, right? And I think that my story is one that it's a narrative that isn't always talked about. Everyone loves the story of, oh, I worked really hard and I achieved my goal. That's great, but that doesn't happen most of the time. And how do you process and handle then when you work really hard and you don't achieve your goal? And that's still something that I'm continuing to process. And one of the reasons why I said at the beginning of our conversation, it's taken me a little bit longer to get motivated and really into training this season, but I'm making my way there and coming around, and I am excited for more in the future.
That is wonderful to hear. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so we'll just, keep this short, wrap it up in a question or two here. But what's your training plans for the summer and what are your future goals for training and racing look like?
Yeah, I'm in Vermont now, so making a life back here with my partner and excited to kind of explore a new area of Vermont and reconnect with the New England ski community and explore parts of the East Coast that I didn't always have access to. I'm just outside of Hanover, New Hampshire. I'm across the border in Vermont though, but it gives me really easy access to the White Mountains in New Hampshire, so that's been fun I already did a big run there yesterday and a few weeks ago too. So it's been fun to kind of explore those a little bit, but still can, you know, explore Vermont or New York or Maine and just find some new fun ways to get fit this summer and fall. And I will still be with snow racing and just kind of competing and training as a little bit of a satellite athlete. And as far as this winter, I don't know exactly what my race schedule is like. We are still waiting to hear back on World Cup starts for period one and what that might look like. But I do have some hopes to make some changes to my race schedule and some things that I can't really say yet what that looks like. But yeah, just kind of finding some new ways to challenge myself and I think that as I've preached now, it's all about balance. And I think my balance is shifting a little bit just with other life things. And so I'm curious to see how that balance shifts and where it takes me.
Do you have any plans to come out to the Minneapolis area, the cable area this summer or this fall?
Yeah, I will be there for sure. I was there in May. I'm actually heading back there next week. I'll be running Grandma's half marathon with my sister, which I'm super excited for. And I'll be with snow racing at a few training sessions then. And then I will also be at the Central REG camp in July and kind of bopping around the Cable and Hayward area during that time. And so doing a couple things with some other clubs during that time as well. And that's as far as I've got so far. I'm sure there will be something else in the fall as well, but for sure, we'll be back in the Midwest plenty.
Do you plan on coming back to the roller ski championships? I don't know if they're in cable again this year. I know that they
Oh,
were past couple of years, but is that on your radar?
yeah, I think that's part of the schedule that I'm not totally sure about. I haven't even seen what those dates are or where they're at, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, that was my first time doing it this fall, and it was a really fun event. And
Yeah.
I think it's also like as a college athlete, it's like 2 or 3 weeks. Actually, it's a lot longer than that before we actually start racing. But
Mhm.
it's a good way to get back into the racing mindset and
Totally.
the method, the process of warm up and cool down and everything like that. So it's great to hear that you're sticking around your roots and you're going to be spending some time with snow racing. And uh, I really appreciated your time. And if you have any advice to high school athletes, college athletes, anybody listening, just any advice you have, what would you like to share?
this is gonna be really cheesy, but I would say follow your heart and do what you want and have fun with it because if that means going all in on skiing at the age of 16, then do it and be so excited about it. And if that means continuing to balance other sports or really challenge yourself academically or musically or whatever it is to have that balance in your life, then follow that path. And, don't be afraid to speak up and share with others that that's your goal and that's what you want to do and that's where you feel the happiest. And I think if you share that sentiment with those around you, then they will be there to support you no matter what.
That is some great advice. Well, thank you so much for your time and giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I look forward to seeing your training pan out this summer and your racing in the future seasons.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cole. It's been a great chat with you, and I'll be cheering for you all summer, fall, and winter long. I hope your wrist recovers as quickly as possible. But
Thank you. Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of the Colmeyer Ski Podcast. Make sure you follow on Spotify or subscribe on YouTube to stay up to date with new episodes or new videos. Make sure to follow my Instagram at Colmeyer Ski to see updates on my other training and some other fun content. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.